Hello everyone, Chris Peterson here, coming to you with another chess commentary. I know it's been quite a while since my last video, and I apologize for that. This time I wanted to bring you a game. Basically, I wanted to continue the series that I was doing before I ended. I'm going to be continuing analyzing my games from the year 2012. I know it's 2013 now, and a lot of these games are fairly old. But I said I would continue with it, and I'll go ahead and do that. I hope to kind of knock out all of them relatively quickly, so that way I can jump into more recent games. I want to get all the way through 2012 and basically catch up. So, actually I'm not even sure how many games I have to go, but I think it's quite a bit. So I've put in quite a bit of effort trying to analyze these games so I can get out videos. And as you can see, I'm going to be using Fritz 13 rather than just Blitzen from ICC. I mean, it kind of lets you see the analysis over here a little bit on the right, and also some of my thoughts into it. I'll probably go into more detail than the actual analysis does, but I don't know, let me know what you guys think of this versus using ICC. So, without further ado, this is going to be from round 3 of the 2012 May DCC Tuesdays. At this point, let's see, I won round 1, but I lost to David Hartsook in round 2, so I've only got 1 point. So now I have to play Brian Wall, who is a master in Denver. He's got games featured on my channel also, so let's go ahead and jump into the game. Started out e4, a6, and Brian was going through this phase throughout the whole 2012 year where he would only play a6 on move 1. And every game as black he would do that. And like I said in previous videos where I talked about this, this isn't necessarily a bad opening choice. It tends to transpose into many different lines. Like, let me see if I can do these. So it could be a Sicilian, some type of dragon setup for sure. You could play d5 and it would transpose into a sort of Scandinavian defense. And you can even play e5 and transpose into those kind of lines. So I just played d4, e6, knight f3, c5. So now it's a Taimanov Sicilian, which is one of the more dynamic responses to the e4 opening. Maybe not quite as dynamic as, say, the Sveshnikov Sicilian or the Shevinigan-Nadorf, something like that. But it's definitely a fairly popular response. So knight c3, cd4, knight d4. So now it's just mainline Taimanov Sicilian, and my opening theory knowledge is really poor. So let's see how this goes. Knight c6, bishop e3, knight f6, f3, bishop b4, queen d2. So I'm kind of setting up what seems to be like an English type attack where you would play g4 and just play against the king side. So now d5. And I say this a lot, but every time you're playing in the Sicilian, you kind of want to break with either d5 or b5. In this case, d5 is an excellent move. It just kind of pressures the center immediately. And it's good all around. So here I should probably just castle. And then after moves like queen a5, knight takes c6, bc6, and bishop d4, maybe castles, and now h4. This position's probably fairly equal at this point. Black's attack on the queen side is going to come much quicker than my attack on the king side. So that's something that I'll have to pay attention to and watch out for. And also black has a really strong, solid center, so I'll have to watch out for that as well, or try to snipe at it with pressure on d5. So instead I played knight takes c6, and after bc6 I should probably just castle queenside here, and let's put that in and see what it looks like. So let me just see. I should probably learn this stuff before I mess around with it. So after castling, you can see the analysis from the computer. It says it's about equal. Maybe white has a slight advantage, and mostly the reason for that is this pin along the d file, which prevents the d pawn from being a threat of any kind. But play is fairly easy for black, and white has to play very positionally active, where black just has to naturally develop. So, but instead I played e5, it's a positional mistake. It concedes the center in that black can now just play moves like c5 without any problems. Better for me would have been to simply castle, like I was saying. So Brian plays knight d7, and then I play a3, trying to kick that dark sword bishop back. Bishop e7, f4, and now c5, and black has an excellent position. He's got the threat of d4 right away, hitting my bishop and knight, and I don't have a select castling move to get out of that very easily. So my next move is pretty much forced. I could try something like knight a4, but I think bishop f2 is better. So then Brian castled. I played bishop e2, just continuing my development. And now rook b8, putting pressure on this backward b pawn. Well, it's not really backward right now, but it's definitely a weakness in my position. And it's fairly tough for me to defend it also. If I just play rook b1, which is what I did, it's fairly easy for black to build up pressure on the queen side. I could play knight a4 here, pressuring the c5 square, and this will make it a little bit more difficult for black to build up his attack on the queen side. So after moves like f6, castles, fe5, knight e5, bishop c5, and now black still might have a positional advantage here, but white is going to be able to put up a fairly strong fight because of the exposure of black's pawns now. Moves like rook a1 will pressure the e pawn fairly safely. So instead I played rook b1, trying to defend the b2 pawn. And now after f6, what little position I have in the center is just basically crumbling, so that's no good. So I played bishop g4, trying to pressure this weak e6 pawn. And Brian played knight b6, defending with the bishop. And here, I had the right idea, but I just went about it in the wrong fashion. That e6 pawn is backwards, it's exposed, but it's not exposed all the way. And if I play e takes f6 here, it basically puts me back into the game, because that e6 pawn becomes a weakness which balances out the weakness on b2. So after bishop takes f6, castles, knight c4, now queen e2, you can see the pressure is building up on the e6 pawn. And then we'll say after queen d6, maybe, I have the slick move knight to e4, pressuring the queen on d6. If the pawn captures the knight on c4 will hang, and if the queen just moves, then the pawn on c5 will hang. So this is an example line might go something like this, and then c3, and now because of the double e pawns, white is perfectly fine here. And I I mean, white might even have a slight advantage here, but very minuscule. So instead after knight b6, I just simply castled. And that makes it really difficult for me because now that e-file is going to be blocked in by my own pawn. So I can't put pressure on the e6 square. So after f takes e5, now knight c4, I don't have a good way to defend b2 and e5 at the same time, so queen e2. And now you see the e5 pawn is kind of preventing my queen from putting pressure on the e6 square. And what it came down to positionally at this point was that I was afraid to just totally relinquish the center because Brian likes to say all the time that humans play based on pawn breaks, and if the center is completely wiped out, I don't have nice pawn breaks like pawn to f5 or something like that. But it's not like in this position I have much of a chance at getting a pawn break either. So, so Black's knight on c4 is a monster. His rooks are perfectly placed, and all he has to do is build up the pressure either on the queen side or on the center, and all I can really do is kind of flail about helplessly. So, so Brian just took the b pawn right away, which probably the best move. Yeah. And now I tried to get it tactical because I see that there's pressure building up on the c5 square. And I thought after knight a4 I would be putting pressure on c5, and after rook takes, and the c5 pawn would fall potentially, or at least give me a chance to build up pressure. But instead, Brian had this neat tactic here with queen a5, and now my knight is totally trapped. It doesn't know where to go. If I try to go knight to b2, for example, he can play queen b6, and it pins the knight, and now I have no way to defend it adequately anyway. For example, c3, I mean, it's really going nowhere. Bishop d7. I don't know. What are some suggestions from Fritz? Just says I'm -5, basically. Bishop e3, rook b8. This looks absolutely hideous. Bishop c1, queen b3. Now everything's bottled up and it's just horrendous looking. Yeah, I don't want to look at that anymore. So after queen a5, I tried to play rook b8 because I'm kind of threatening to play bishop takes pawn, hitting the knight, hitting the king and the bishop, which is not even pinned necessarily. I don't even know what I was thinking. Couldn't he just... Oh right, okay. So I'm threatening to play rook takes bishop, bishop takes pawn check. Yeah. All right. So it makes sense that he should just play bishop d7, which is just a simple defense that leaves white with a hanging white knight that can't do anything. So all in all, I just made a couple of really bad positional blunders in the opening, and that kind of set me up for defeat for the rest of the game. And the thing about tactics is if you have a bad position, the tactics aren't going to work out in your favor, and that's fairly evident from this position. So in order to have tactics, you have to have a good position, and in order to do that, you have to play the opening well, which is something that I definitely struggle with. So with that, that's the end of that game. Let me know what you guys think of this new setup, and yeah, let me know how the audio quality is. I kind of struggled quite a bit with getting proper sound working, and that kind of deterred me from making the videos. So hopefully if I can get a what's the right word? A consistent quality sound out of this, then I won't be in such a... I'll be able to put out more videos faster, we'll say. Alright, well thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next game.